You know, some horror stories are all about monsters and jump scares, but the ones that really get under your skin, they're rooted in something way deeper. We're talking about a specific place, a dark history, and a warning that somebody was foolish enough to ignore. So today, we're going to tear apart a classic rural horror story to figure out what makes a simple haunted path so incredibly terrifying. Okay, let's dive in.
It all kicks off with this simple, chilling warning from a village elder, a guy named Ramswarup Baba. This one sentence, this is the seed from which the entire nightmare is going to grow. See, it's not just friendly advice, it's a rule that was born from some kind of tragedy, and it perfectly sets up the entire conflict of our story.
All right, so that brings us to our first section, Purana People Wala Rasta, which translates to the Old People Tree Path. And as the subtitle says, it's a path haunted by a tragic past. We find ourselves in a little village called Rajanpur, where we're immediately hit with two clashing ideas: the ancient beliefs of the local folks and the modern, skeptical mind of an outsider.
And this right here is such a classic horror setup. On one side, you've got the villagers. They represent tradition, belief, and they're giving this serious warning. And on the other side, we've got our protagonist, Ajay. He's from the city, armed with logic, and to him, this is all just superstition. This clash, logic versus folklore, is the engine that's going to drive all the tension.
Ajay fits this role perfectly. He's what we call the skeptic protagonist. His disbelief is actually super important because he's our stand-in, you know? We see the world through his logical eyes, and that's what makes it so much more terrifying when his logic starts to just completely fall apart and the unexplainable takes over. His journey from non-believer to horrified witness, well, that's our journey too.
So how does it all start? With one single, fateful decision. A local guy named Mohan tells him it's a shortcut back to the city, so Ajay just brushes off the elder's warning, all to save a little time. This one act of defiance, that's the story's inciting incident. That's the moment he steps off the safe road and onto a path that's going to change him forever.
And that brings us right into Section 2, Andhavishwas or Aharte, or superstition and eerie sounds. This is all about the slow build. See, the best horror stories, they don't just throw scares at you. No, they build this slow, creeping dread through atmosphere, through making you feel isolated, and through sounds that just play on your mind.
The story starts by making you feel completely and totally isolated. I mean, picture it. Ajay's all alone on this dark, muddy path. There's a dense forest on either side. The only things he can hear are crickets chirping and maybe some frogs. It's the kind of environment that's designed to make you feel really small and vulnerable. And this is where the story starts to really mess with your head. It introduces this ambiguous sound, footsteps. So Ajay turns around, but of course, nobody's there. Is it real, or is it just paranoia starting to set in? By making us ask the exact same question, the story just brilliantly blurs the line between what's real and what Ajay thinks is real.
Just as Ajay's trying to talk himself down, trying to rationalize the footsteps, the sound changes. It's not some random forest noise anymore. No, this is the sound of human suffering, a woman crying. And that is a huge shift. The fear isn't about being alone anymore. It's about the fact that you're not alone, and whoever is out there with you is in pain.
And then, boom, the first direct contact. The spirit appears, her face is covered in blood, her eyes are missing, and she speaks. But her words aren't just some generic threat. She says, "Take me to my killer." In that one instant, she goes from being a terrifying monster to something way more complex. She's a victim, and she's looking for justice. That adds this whole other layer of tragedy to the horror.
Okay, so now we're heading into Section 3, Radha Ka's Badla, or Radha's Revenge. This is where the past finally comes crashing into the present. Now that we know the spirit's motive, the story just barrels toward its violent climax, unleashing all that tension that's been slowly building.
A local mystic, or tantric, shows up and lays it all out. This isn't a random haunting, it's a story of betrayal. Radha was murdered right here on this path by Mohan. Yep, the same guy who sent Ajay down this road. He was her childhood sweetheart, but he chose greed over her. So her spirit is stuck here, bound to this place, not out of malice, but on a mission for revenge.
The climax just unfolds in these four really clear stages. First, the tantric arrives and acts as a guide, revealing the truth. Then, just as Ajay learns who the killer is, Mohan himself shows up, looking for Ajay.
And this leads to the final, terrifying confrontation, where Radha's spirit finally gets to face her murderer and serve up her own kind of justice.
And this is just classic folk horror. It's not just the spirit taking action. The path itself, that ancient people tree, becomes part of her revenge. The actual roots of the tree come alive and trap Mohan. It's like the land itself remembers the crime and is making sure the guilty can't escape.
Radha's final words before she vanishes, man, they just perfectly sum up the entire moral of the story. The path isn't just dirt and trees. It's a living monument to a terrible crime. It carries a scar, a memory. Her revenge might be complete, but that warning is now etched into the landscape itself, forever. But hold on, the story isn't over, not even close. And that brings us to our final section, Kabhi na khatam hone wala dar, which means the never-ending fear. Because what makes a story truly terrifying is when the fear doesn't just disappear with the monster, it stays with you, kind of like a ghost in your own mind.
So let's look at the immediate aftermath, right? Mohan is gone, justice served. Radha's spirit leaves, and we think she's found peace. Maybe. But Ajay, the poor guy who just happened to witness it all, he's not so lucky. He goes back to the city, but he's scarred by what he saw. That psychological trauma is his to carry.
And just when you think there might be some kind of closure, the story jumps forward. 6 months go by. Ajay is trying to get on with his life, but then a letter shows up from the village, and it pulls him right back into the nightmare. The story is far from over.
The letter from Ram Swarup Baba is absolutely terrifying. Apparently, strange things are happening again. People are disappearing from that path, 3 more people. The villagers are convinced that Radha is back and that somehow her spirit is even stronger than it was before. It's this chilling idea you see in horror all the time. Evil isn't always defeated. Sometimes it just rests, regroups, and comes back with a vengeance.
And with that, the story's final brutal point just clicks into place. You can leave a haunted place, sure, but that doesn't mean the haunted place leaves you. The path remembers Ajay. That letter is basically a summons. The trauma he tried so hard to escape is now calling him back. There is no escape.
And that's where we're left, with this chilling feeling that we're watching a cycle that's just doomed to repeat itself. It really forces you to ask, is a ghost story ever truly finished? Or does the act of telling it and retelling it keep the fear and maybe the spirit itself alive forever?